Good morning. This is Susan Matson, Master Gardener with Daryl Anderson. This morning we are in Raymond. Daryl has completed an interesting project that we're going to take a look at. It's something that the average person in this area can probably put together. We'll look at the finished product first. Place to put your plants, makes an interesting planter. We also will be at the fair next month, and Daryl will be bringing his planter there. It's made out of a pallet, and he'll show in a few minutes how it has gone together. Another thing to remember is that at the fair, in our booth, we will have the Scarecrow contest this year. So again, if you're interested in making a scarecrow and contributing it, we will be at the fair booth with it. With those, and you can vote on the best scarecrow. Our theme this year is Garden Party. We'll have some tables available in the booth for people who want to sit around. We'll have plants as usual, and it's a good chance to ask questions for our master gardeners who will also be there to take care of questions. So I will pass this on to Daryl, and he can talk a little bit about some of the plants, and we'll show you the planter behind us.
Good morning. We have a committee that works with the Master Gardeners that plans the fair. And one of the things we talked about early on was doing a pallet garden. And so I went to a class up at Thompson Nursery up near St. Joseph. And they had a lady who gave a demonstration on how to make a pallet garden. Now, hers was a little more involved than mine. I tried to make it rather simple so that we could at least try it out. And we will bring this to the fair so that people can look at it. Now, the one I've completed here, I have put in different plants. The ones that seem to be doing the best right now are the kale. So I have some kale. I do have some cabbage. I planted a tomato, which has gotten a little bit overgrown. I'm going to have to stake it up before I take it to the fair. But it is a cherry tomato. And I do have some peppers. And then I put in some flowers, namely petunias and some blue salvia. The demonstration that was given up at Thompson's, the lady had two pallets which were nailed together and actually made an upside down V. So it'd be like this one, and then there was another one on the back. And she had only flowers in hers. When you make these, it's important that you put some kind of a barrier on the back so that the soil does not leak out of it, and that you also put some support. So we'll talk about putting a board on the back to support the pallet garden. With these, you could lay them flat and have like cool weather crops like lettuce, kale, Swiss chard. You could do peas in here. And probably I would avoid doing crops that have deep roots like carrots or parsnips. You could probably do some zucchini in here if you wanted to take up and use a lot of space. So I think it's probably as varied as you want to make it. So whatever you think you can grow in here, other than I would say root crops, I think you would be able to do. All right, I'm going to take you over and show you how to make one of these. I picked up another pallet, and pallets you should be able to get from various places. They may be as cheap as free, or they may cost you a few dollars. This one I picked up is a little bit smaller than the one that I used to make the garden, and I probably would take off a couple boards here because you do not have a lot of space to do a garden, but if you wanted a smaller one, I would probably leave it. One of the first things you need to do after you obtain a pallet is to put some plastic on the back, and I have taken some plastic. I just bought a roll of clear plastic sheeting. This is 4 mil, and I just stapled it onto the pallet. It's important that you do the ends too, so that the soil does not go out the ends. I did not do the end of that one because I'm planning on almost standing it up when we have it at the fair, so people can look at like vertical gardening, and you can actually use the top here to put some plants in if you want it. Okay, but if I was going to do it flat, I would make sure that both ends were enclosed. Okay, so first thing you do is cover the whole back with plastic. You don't have to try and seal it or anything with tape. I didn't do that. And then what you need to do is you need to provide some kind of support for the plastic. So what I did on mine was I just took some lightweight plywood, and you need to cut it out so that you can put it on there, and then you attach it either with screws or nails. And so I would put that all the way across below the plastic. So you have the plastic and then you have the plywood. Okay. Now once you have the bottom completed, then you need to take and fill this up with dirt. And I was surprised when I did mine. It took 2 bags of potting soil this size to fill it. So, and I just put it in here and then packed it in. And you can do it on the ends if they're open. Otherwise, you just keep tamping it in there. Once you've got this filled with the soil, then you can start doing your plants. Now, you can either plant seeds. For example, if you're doing green beans, I would plant the seeds. If you were doing things like cabbage or tomatoes or peppers, then you can put the plants in there. And again, just firm them up, and then once you have everything planted, you need to water it, and it does require watering on a regular basis because it's like a potted plant. They do dry out quickly, although the boards kind of conserve some of the moisture. But I found that watering it every day or every other day, depending on what the weather situation is required.
I was just looking at it. Now, a couple questions I would have is, where do you normally keep this? In full sunlight, in part shade? Also, I suppose it depends on what kind of plants you have in it. But you suggested putting flowers in it. You could do all flowers. As you can see, the tomato plant is probably a little bit top heavy for this. But otherwise, where would be a good place to keep it?
Well, I've kept this right now in an area that probably gets 3 to 4 hours of sun a day. So that's why the kale has done well, because they can take a little bit of shade, and the tomato plant has probably become a little bit overgrown. But you can put these out in the sun if they're sun-loving plants like tomatoes and peppers, and you can actually leave it in full sun. One of the nice things is if you're going to have a hot, drying day like we've got coming up here, where you might be windy and stuff, you can move it to a sheltered area. But they're not real portable. They do get to be a little heavy once they are become watered and full of soil.
While we're here, I was going to have Daryl show us how he's got his rain barrels set up. A lot of you have asked some questions about master gardeners, about having rain barrels. And sometimes it's a little easier if you can take a look at one that's already established and set up. So we're going to move right now over to the rain barrel. And, yeah, so we don't fall over the pallet. So we're moving over here. Okay, we're over here by a rain barrel that is set up to manage rainwater that comes off of the roof through a downspout and into the screen that covers it. Now, maybe Daryl could give us a few insights into the composition of a rain barrel that you buy.
Okay, rain barrels are for sale, set up just like this. They look like a regular I don't know how many gallons these are, but rain barrel, and it does come with a screen on the top. It's important that you have a screen to, one, not let the mosquitoes in to lay eggs, and two, to keep debris from going into the water so it doesn't create a foul-smelling water. It was also important for me to shorten up my downspout so that it would, the water would run in here. And I did put a little support down here of a brick so that it would hold this in place, as well as the water could run in here. If I have excess water, it just runs over the top. So make sure that you have an area where you can have water. With a roof the size of my garage, it does fill up rather quickly. So if we have a heavy rain, I have lots of excess. Now, in order to get the water out of here, there's a hose that's connected to the bottom, and once you turn the nozzle, then the water will come out. And I usually fill a watering can or something else that I can use to go out and water the plants. Okay. And then when I'm done, I can hang it back up here.
I also noticed that that black hose way at the bottom is called an overflow, isn't it? Just in case it does get full.
Right.
And then it can come out that flat black plastic. Again, you can water anything in your garden with it. The water comes out fairly clean. I did notice when I had one that it was a good idea maybe once a year to really clean it out. Yeah. You don't want it to freeze during the winter, so you want to make sure it's emptied, and you use a hose to kind of swish it out a little bit and get anything out of there that might have gone into the through the screen or around the screen. But it is a really handy tool to have for gardening, for watering your potted plants, for anything that you want to use a watering can or a bucket to fill. To me, it's very, very handy. So the best way to do it, though, is as Daryl has it set up with a downspout. I tried doing it on my house. I do not have gutters. And I ended up not having enough rain falling off the roof that would actually fill the rain barrel. So it took it a long time unless it was a really heavy rain. So, Daryl, if there's something else you'd like to tell us or show us something in your garden?
I'll make one more comment on the rain barrel. A lot of times they don't recommend that you use this water on vegetables that you're going to eat, because the rain does come off the roof, and if there are bird droppings and other things that might get in here. So it's great for watering my potted plants. I love it for that, but I don't usually use it on my vegetables. So especially the root crops and those like that.
I noticed right behind us is Daryl's garden. He has, I know I have heard him talk a little bit about his garlic, which he said was harvested already, so we have no chance to look at the garlic or the garlic scapes. But you can see behind me there's a composter, a couple of compost areas, and also a very compact vegetable garden. So is there anything else you would like to add for our gardeners? I don't know if I mentioned, but Daryl is a master gardener and has been for several years. Again, we will be at the fair next month in August. We also have a table at the midweek farmers market that meets at the mall. And so if you have questions for master gardeners, if you're interested in becoming a master gardener, or if you just want some information about gardening, feel free to stop in. Daryl, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think just make sure you come to the fair and come with questions. We love to have people visit with us and either bring their questions or tell us about things that they've done and find out new ways of growing vegetables.
Thank you very much. We'll see you next month.